Hello and welcome to 52%, the show that talks about everything and anything going on in Liverpool and beyond from the perspective of 52% of the population, women. This time we're tackling an issue that affects thousands of people each year in one form or another. We're going to be finding out about mental health. Here's what's coming up on this week's show. We're joined by Rita Jones from Advanced Solutions, an organisation that's part of Liverpool's Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services Partnership. Rita, tell us a little bit to start with about the work that you've been doing with young people.
Advanced Solutions works with children, young people and families who live with a range of neurodevelopmental conditions. And part of our understanding is that children may have autism or ADHD or sensory processing difficulties. That might be just the physical side of their condition. What sits behind that is their mental health that goes with it, that's often bypassed really, and we tend to treat the clinical side and we don't look at the mental health side of these children's conditions.
So how did you come about setting this charity up? How did you come about setting the service up itself?
I myself have a son who was diagnosed with ADHD when he was 7. He's now 24. And for those who understand ADHD, it's a lifelong condition and it impacts him in many ways. One of the ways that it does impact him was around his mental health growing up. So understanding ADHD was really important for him to be able to support himself and not be dependent so much on other people trying to support his health and well-being. So we set up in order to literally around a kitchen table. I know it's an old analogy, but it was around a kitchen table with other people who were going through the same difficulties. And we just put a poster up in the shopping centre and said, if anybody likes to come and chat with a cup of tea, we'll be here on this day, at this time. And the first group we led, there was 20 people turned up on the first session. And I think it was probably because we mentioned, ADHD and autism, that people suddenly found somewhere that they could go and speak to somebody who actually understood what was going on in their day-to-day life.
I mean, I think the thing is, from an awful point of view, that there's always been the sort of stigma that people will say, oh, in my day, particularly the older generation, I'm trying to put this in a better way, they'll say, in my day, kids with ADHD were just naughty kids, and now, it's a disease because of the modern... And it must be so frustrating for you to hear sentences like that.
It is. It's frustrating for us as parents, but it was also frustrating for children and young people who have to go through day-to-day functioning, explaining why they struggle so much. Getting friends, falling out with friends, academic situations really difficult for them because they really struggle on a day-to-day basis. And if they go to school, they're expected to learn. If people don't understand how they learn, then they're not able to support them effectively. So they feel that then comes back to them, and they then feel, I can't cope in this situation, I need to try and find another way of dealing with it.
Had experience of actually going in and teaching to demonstrate that it's what happened there? How did that come about?
My son was excluded from school, so many times for behaviours that are associated with ADHD, which was really frustrating from somebody who understood ADHD to explain that to somebody who was just trying to get him through their education was really hard. But then being told by a teacher that my child was unteachable at 11, was really crazy. And I thought going back then, which is sort of 12, 13 years ago, things should have changed by now. But we're still finding parents are telling us that teachers are saying they can't cope with their children in the classroom.
But you see, they have different means for children, say, with dyslexia or things, and they have sometimes special teachers to help them with dyslexia because that's a condition. Why can't it be looked at that, well, ADHD, that's a medical condition. Why aren't they? Yeah, and I think it's something that people think it's very closely related. I don't know how much it is with, you deal with Asperger's and autism. Does it somewhere all relate itself, interlink itself?
Yeah, it does. It does. That's the beauty, shall we say, of neurodevelopmental conditions, is that there's so many overlaps. There's so many conditions that have similar characteristics that it's often difficult for professionals to recognise and identify. We've been fortunate enough through the CAMS partnership to be able to offer awareness raising training on neurodevelopmental conditions to be able to do
That's
that.
interesting.
Really do
That's
want to talk to you
fascinating.
about the CAMS partnership, everything like that, but we do have a little bit more show, so we're going to come back to you in just a moment, Rita, because nearly 80,000 children aged 5 to 16 are diagnosed with severe depression each year in the UK. One brave young woman, Ella Grimes, met Gael in the studio last week to tell us her story.
So we're now with Ella and Julie, who came to the studio to talk to us about anxiety and depression, because that's the theme this week in the show. Ella, can you tell us maybe a little bit about your story?
Well, I'm 17 now, and I was first diagnosed when I was 14, I think. I just put a lot of pressure on myself for schoolwork, and I was dancing at the time, and it all got too much, and my mum thought I was just a moody teenager, but it was more than that. So we went to the GP, and they offered us CAMS, which is the mental health service, and I think I was on the waiting list for only 3 weeks, which was quite short because the waiting list is quite long. And from then on, I've had therapy with a psychiatrist.
Yeah. And what would you say were like the things you're talking about schools, but would you say that this is really the element that made you feel like that, or?
I'd say for a lot of young people, their depression is from stress from school as well. I know a lot of people.
From the other students or from the load of work?
The
or?
load of work.
Really?
Yeah.
Right. So
Definitely.
Did you have a chance to speak about this with the teachers or something like that?
They helped a lot. I was in a very big school as well. It wasn't small, and I think I just had to. They lowered my timetable as the years went on, and eventually my mum took me out of the school, and I was off for 4 months because it just wasn't working for me.
And so, what would you say were like the repercussions on your daily life of these problems?
Well, I didn't want to get up. I just wanted to leave and, commit suicide. And I have tried a lot. I have.
Right.
So it got quite serious. I was hospitalised for a night as well. So it just got worse.
Right. And you, Julie, as a mum, I imagine that it's quite hard to see your daughter like that. How did you feel about all this?
Well, at first I thought she was just moody and being spoilt and not wanting to do work in school and stuff. And Ella also heard voices in her head, which we've since learned is the thoughts that are in our head become audible. And then they become demons and they tell you what to do and things. And wouldn't it be great if you went in under a train, etc. and things like that. So that was hard, trying to keep her safe. So we had a very honest relationship that if she doesn't feel safe, then we take steps that she didn't go to school or she doesn't get on a train, and I had to remove all the knives out of the house and the medicines were under lock and key. Because I even carve a chicken with a bread knife because even if she's well, she will see something, and if she hears a voice, then there's something there for her to use. So you have to think of everything.
Yeah, that must have been, like, as a mum, I guess, like
terrible.
Quite hard. Yeah. And so, what made you get out of it? You said you were seeing like a psychotherapist, or
Just therapy every week, really, and they gave me medicine, so antidepressants and antipsychotics, and they really helped. Like, they kept my mood level, and I really didn't want to go on medicine because I thought I'd rely on it, But if you can, if I was at like that worse, I think I had to really. I had to.
And yeah, would you say like the medicine helped more than, I don't know,
Definitely.
because the fact of being surrounded by people as well, I guess that's what matters, seeing that people are here for you. I mean, that's what I
Well, if you
imagine,
don't talk, you won't get better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had to. It took me about a year to admit that I was ill. And when you admit it, you can get help. So.
And how do you feel today?
I feel fine. I'm
Yeah.
getting a lot better, yeah.
That's good.
Although only last week she wasn't.
Yeah.
And this is the thing with mental health in young people, is that I see it before Ella. Because obviously I have more years and I can recognise when her mood's going down before she does. Because
So-
she thinks that,
Yeah.
you know, I'm shopping today or I'm seeing my friends is absolutely great, and I can see indicators that all isn't great.
So what's the trick to try and get her, make her feel good? And
I've had one rule, is that she gets showered every single day, and that she
that's a good
gets up, and that she
Yeah.
eats 3 meals a day. Even if she just laughs once in one day, that'll be a good day. And you just try and see the positive all the time, even when it's dark.
that's
That's
a
a
good
trick.
Yeah, that's
Just
a good
one positive in
Yeah.
one day is enough.
thing. Okay. So well, we wish you good luck, but
Thank you.
yeah, we got to
Thanks
keep
very
going.
much.
Great. Thank you very much
Thank
again.
you.
Welcome back, and on this episode we're talking about the effects of mental health issues in young people. We're joined by Rita from Advanced Solutions. Now, before the break, Kyle spoke to an amazing young woman called Ella. She's been sharing her story of severe depression with us, and I think she made a very good point, Ella, in the fact that the pressures that are now put on teenagers and young people, how much of a difference have you found in the rise of depression in youngsters?
I think there's been more young people who are able to talk about their anxieties and their stress now. I think that's better than it used to be. At one time, children didn't know the difference between mental health and well-being and just a normal day-to-day living. But now, because there's enough awareness getting out to schools, there are people out there who can raise that awareness for them. And it really helps them to be able to say, I think I'm not feeling very well, or I've got a problem, can somebody help me? I think the push over the last few years to raise awareness around young people's mental health has been really positive.
And how do you feel, do you feel that there's a gender difference between boys and girls? Because we know statistically that, you know, far more boys tend to commit suicide than girls. You know, they'll reach that tipping point and won't get the help they need. Why do you think that is?
I think no disrespect to men, but I think women are better able to cope with the complexities of day-to-day functioning. I think girls tend to help each other out more. They can talk to each other more often than boys
feel
do.
Like, oh, we just kick a football and everything will be all right, and
Yeah.
you'll feel a bit soft if you say
Absolutely.
anything, isn't it? And that's how it bottles
And
up.
also boys tend to, you know, they do the activities, they do, you know, boy type things, whereas girls are more concerned about, you know, their day-to-day functioning really. So I think it has increased. I think there's lots to do. There's lots more to do to raise awareness of the range. I think schools often have their hands tied. I think, you know, with lots of cuts and lots of pressure on schools to achieve academically. My concern is that children can't learn effectively if they're emotionally not able to do so. So their health and well-being is really fundamental to their ability to learn.
What sorts of things do you think what are happening within schools and the education system, within the curriculum, within that pressure to achieve? Yeah. What sorts of things are the young people coming to you and saying about those pressures? Are there any particular things that come out?
I think it's the independence of learning that's the issue. I think when they're younger, they're in a single environment with one teacher, and they don't need to use their executive skills as much. But once they become into secondary school, that jump from being, you know, part of a team to being an independent learner puts so much pressure on young people.
One thing I was going to ask, and I've been itching to ask this question, how much has social media affected stress? And I mean, I know of even children who started in year 7 this year, and the online bullying that they seem to just be getting away with because, oh, it's a joke on Instagram, and oh, this is what people do on Facebook. And I think, oh, this is just, have you found a big rise since the influx of social media?
I think so. I think from the perspective of the young people that I work with, because they may have autism or ADHD, socially, their social and communication skills are not where they personally would like them to be. So it's an issue for them. And often they will use Facebook to communicate with something that is not a person. They don't realise that they're actually talking to the world out there. And they think that it's okay, it's safe for them. And sometimes digital media can be a problem for children. So it's important that they all get that understanding that actually once you publish something online, everybody gets to see it.
Screenshots, because it's out there, isn't it?
And if you're desperate to make friends and to have relationships, then if you don't have the social and communication skills that you really need, then you can be posting stuff that's not relevant or it's not appropriate, and the fallout from that can be huge.
And ultimately, all that happens person to person. It happens.
That's right.
It happens viscerally. It happens. It happens between us now. It doesn't happen, you know, on some sort of social interface. You know, and
absolutely.
trying to get people to understand that is quite complex, actually.
And also, if a young person is on the spectrum, then they will not often recognise that the conversation coming back is another person. So it's all the social aspect of it. Whereas you can, you know, if we're having a conversation here, you know that you're having a conversation with another human being. You can, you know, you can try and read their language, their body language. You can tell if they don't want to listen. But if you have just got, you know, words in front of you, you can't read those words.
How many times do you like misunderstand a text or something?
Yeah, exactly.
I think the other
on a basic level, they are just words.
Yeah,
you know,
just
there's one level on which you can go, actually, that is just words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and without recognising all of the processes that lead back to the actual living, breathing human being at the other end. You know, and that's quite interesting.
To ask a question here. So we've talked about, you know, the extra pressures of going into, you know, high level education, well, secondary school, and the pressures from social media. What about the pressures about puberty as well? Going through all that at the same time, it must be horrendous.
It is, and some of our young people have these concerns. They desperately want, you know, a relationship, and they desperately want to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but they're unable to initiate because they don't have the skills that they need to do that. And the pressures of not having a girlfriend or a boyfriend when you're 16 or 17 is just
One of the rejected.
escalates, and you're the one that they don't want. They don't want to be with. So your self-esteem and you know your confidence, and
So
that
it's
just
a
drops.
downward
It can be
spiral.
downward.
Pressure.
Yeah.
I think people again have this idea that, oh, they've got ADHD, give them a few tablets, they'll be fine, everything will be all right. And they don't realise that this is the onset of something that could affect the rest of their lives. I mean, Kathy doesn't mind me mentioning
Not
this.
at all.
It's something that's very, very close to Kathy, and this is why I'm going to take the lead on this one with her, because Kathy actually suffers from, you are bipolar, aren't you?
Bipolar 2 disorder,
Bipolar 2. So you just tell us a little bit about when you realised this. I mean, we were watching Ella earlier, and one thing Kathy had said to me was, she said, I don't always realise it myself. Somebody else spots it, and Ella's mum said straight away, she doesn't even know herself, she'll be shopping and I'll pick up. When did it become apparent to you, Kathy?
I first realised that I was different from everybody else. Well, that was kind of my first ever memory, but and my grandmother suffered with what they used to call manic depression in those days, they call it bipolar now. And, you know, I'd just like to stress here, as Ella was saying, these mental health conditions can be fatal. you know, taking your life, and you know, is not an uncommon thing with people who have suffered this. And my grandma did manage to do that after several attempts. But in those days, there wasn't the help. In my early years, there wasn't the help. There was difficulty recognising that there was an issue. And I was actually only diagnosed in 2008, following several severe depressive episodes and some ups as well. But I would definitely say that I'm not the last to know that I'm not well, but it'll be my mum or my partner or my two boys will say, "Mum, you're slipping." And I have to take action then, because if it goes too far down, then I can't do anything about
What
it.
triggers it off, Kathy? Could it be something trivial? Is it a catalogue of events? I feel like I'm sort of being a bit ignorant, but
No, that's okay.
I'm asking from your point of view
Yeah.
what it is that triggers it off.
I find that the biggest trigger for me is betrayal, oddly enough, because I feel like I've been betrayed in the past, and I rely so heavily on my friends for support. If somebody then turns against me, it hits me really hard. And this is what teenage kids will be going through all the time. Well, now that we're older, we tend to do that sort of thing less. But it still happens, and that can knock me out for a couple of weeks. And what that might be a small thing to somebody, but to me it'll hit me hard. But there are triggers everywhere. I'm in a bipolar group on Facebook, and quite often you'll see these posts, trigger warning. So for people who might have a trigger, they shouldn't read any further. So we're all aware of these things together, and I'm glad that Facebook is there from my point of view, because those resources are there for me. But I am fully aware of the downside of the social media as well, and how that can hit.
Do you think if services like Rita's had been around when you were in your teens, or do you think that if you'd have gone to something like Rita, it might have helped you in later life?
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly, I was just floundering throughout my teenage years. As soon as I got to secondary school, the pressure started, puberty hit in. I was different to everybody else, and they could see that I was different. I was always quite outgoing, and I always seemed really confident, but that's just a front that I've built to help me deal with the situation. So I started not going to school because it was painful and difficult. It was painful and difficult at home because my parents were going through a divorce. So I discovered going out and drinking at a young age, started self-medicating with it.
And again, that's sort of getting yourself into a backwards spiral again.
Exactly.
Kathy, honestly, thank you for your honesty. We're going to touch some more on it in just a few minutes from now. We are going to be back after the break to carry on this discussion, because quite frankly, it's fascinating, and take a look at a centre that specifically supports young people with mental difficulties. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back. Now, on this episode, we're talking about the effects of mental health issues, and we're joined by Rita from Advanced Solutions. Earlier this week, we sent Gael to have a chat with Emma at the Open Door Centre on the Wirral to find out all about the work they do supporting young people in need.
According to figures from the Office of National Statistics, 10% of children in Great Britain aged between 5 and 16 have a mental health problem. I met Emma London at the Open Door Centre in Wallasey to find out how the centre is helping young people.
Emma, you were telling me you've been working here for 2 years in this place. So can you tell us a little bit, what is this place about?
Yeah, so the Open Door Centre is a charity that was opened with the idea of providing support for initially young people, but now we've opened up into really anyone, so there's no age limit, but people that are experiencing depression or anxiety or low moods and stress, whatever you want to call it, but that felt like the traditional clinical routes for support weren't for them. It could be for a number of reasons. Maybe they thought it was a little bit formal, or, for whatever reason really. So we opened with the idea of providing support in a way that was dead informal, really laid back, and quite different from the traditional forms of support.
And so when you're talking about mental health, can you describe maybe the kind of problems that people who come along have?
So primarily we support people with depression and anxiety, or even just feeling low, feeling stressed. It doesn't have to, we don't really like to put labels on it like depression and anxiety, because that's when people can get really quite down on themselves about the situation. So But yeah, a lot of the people that come in are stressed, feeling low. They could have a number of personal issues going on as well that have impacted on that. Some personal issues could be, for our young people, a lot of the time it's school stress, pressure with exams, pressure with coursework, maybe relationship issues or friendship issues. For the people that are coming in, they're a little bit older, it can be work-related problems. Maybe they're not happy in the job, maybe they're finding it too stressful, or maybe they can't find work. Again, it could be relationship issues, but we've got a wide spectrum of people that come in, and we try and provide as best as support we can for everyone that comes in.
And so you were saying that you've got quite a lot of young people coming along. Do you see like more girls than boys maybe? Or?
Traditionally in mental health services, it is more girls going and seeking help. Here, we've actually, again, that's another point we pride ourselves on, it's pretty much a 50-50 split. And I think that is down to the nature of the service and how laid back we are, and how approachable we are, really, without blowing my own horn, about how approachable we are. But yeah, traditionally, unfortunately, it is mainly women that will seek support for mental health problems. So,
and what do you think, I mean, what kind of problems do they encounter? Is it, it's not, yeah.
Well, I can't really speak. I'll speak from my personal experience, if that's okay. So I got diagnosed with social anxiety at quite a young age. Struggled with personal issues growing up with my family. Struggled with relationship issues. Was in some difficult relationships, and also had friendship issues, as most young people do. But it's when those issues build up and become unmanageable that you know you've got to go and seek help. So. A lot of the young people that come in, it's similar issues to myself that individually might seem quite manageable, might seem like you're going to be okay, but when they're building up and when the pressure's getting to you, if you're not seeking help, then it can become quite a troubling issue for some people.
Yeah. And so when would you say, because we all feel a bit down some days, so when would you say it's the time to seek help, really?
Yeah, well, like you said, we do. We all feel down. We wouldn't be human if we didn't feel sad, or if we didn't have days when we were feeling sad, we wouldn't notice the days when we were really happy. And again, in day-to-day life, it's natural. It's unfortunate, but we can lose loved ones. Relationships can break down. Sad things do happen, and it's normal at those times to feel down and feel sad. But it's when these feelings are going on, we say, for every day for 2 weeks, for most of the day. That's when you need to seek help and support, and that's exactly what the NHS says as well. And if you're not getting out of bed, or if you're feeling tearful, if you're feeling anxious, then you definitely do need to go and speak to someone.
Yeah. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Young people 16 to 24 years old seem to encounter more anxiety than children. While 3 out of 4 children report high or very high personal well-being, 33% of young people still feel medium or high levels of anxiety, according to a report published in last October by the Office for National Statistics.
Whoa, she was incredible, wasn't she? Absolutely brilliant. You actually watched her with a smile on your face, didn't you?
I want to meet that.
Yeah,
I want to meet her now.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
One thing that I think we don't want to put things in boxes and say this is this, this is that. Can you tell us, Rita, a little bit more about I can never say it properly, CBT, go on, you can tell us.
Okay, I think CBT is used as a therapy that's used around how people process and perceive sort of information, situations that are going on in their lives. I think there are times when we all perceive things to be different than they actually are. And sometimes just by having somebody who can help you to address that and to see it how it actually is part of the cognitive behavioural therapy process. Sometimes it can be something as simple as having a listening therapy, having somebody who will listen to you and understand you, and then identify whether it's you can change your behaviour as a result of looking at it differently. And I think as far as the young people that we work with, behaviour change is something that everybody wants them to do, and CBT helps them to change some of their behaviours. I think it's really important to understand that children, young people need to understand what CBT is, and they're part of the process, rather than going for therapy that they don't understand the process.
Yeah.
And I think that CBT as a therapy itself is really beneficial for all of us, not just for children and young people.
Yes.
Sorry. Because does it also help? You said, interestingly, there are all those moments when we can perceive something and it isn't necessarily the thing that's happening. Is it right to say that cognitive behavioural therapy would help anyone to be able to make the distinction between what their perception is of an event and the event itself?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we all go through stressful lives, and sometimes we don't see actually what's right in front of us.
Absolutely.
And other people, you know, especially with social media and stuff, you don't know what's in front of you. And relationships, you know, you often don't know what's behind a relationship.
It is a very powerful therapy. I mean, I've been through a few courses of it, and I've found it. Somebody once described it to me as it's like the leaves on the end of the tree. It's a tool to help you get through and help you reperceive things in a different way. But what it's not doing is it's not dealing with the matter at the bottom. But we do need something at every stage throughout. I mean, CAMS, that's Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, isn't it?
Yes.
How does a person become involved with CAMS, and once they're involved, what then happens?
Okay, CAMS goes sort of as lots and lots of CAMS services across the city, and often people don't understand that CAMS is within voluntary organisations, it's in your community, but we only ever seem to address CAMS as being a clinical, you know, that you go to a psychotherapist or you go to... CAMS is in lots of places within the city. We're not classed as a clinical provider, but we're CAMS services because what we offer is support for children, young people and their families living with neurodevelopmental conditions. But there are other CAMS partners out there, like of ADHD Foundation, YPAS, MYA. You know, there's lots of organisations out there that you wouldn't perceive as probably being CAMS clinical provider. And I think by changing people's perception and saying it's not about going to a psychotherapist in a hospital setting, because that scares people and adds more pressure. And I think by the partnership that's in Liverpool now is so more accessible than thinking you're on a huge waiting list waiting to see somebody in the clinic.
And it's interesting what you're saying, because in a way, what with that whole clinical thing and going to the hospital and everything, it can sort of pathologise the conditions. It can pathologise them. Whereas with the clip that we just saw, you know, I mean, that I wanted to go there. I just wanted to go there. I just thought, you know what, I wouldn't mind having a cup of tea there.
Absolutely.
Because it was so welcoming, and that, I mean, that astonishing young woman, and the way that she had created that environment that you thought. I was looking at it, I was thinking, God, those sofas look comfy. You know, and you wouldn't feel
on the walls.
Yes, exactly. But you wouldn't feel like you were some sort of like odd thing.
No.
That had come along and you were looking for your box diagnoses.
Yeah.
You know, you would feel like a fully rounded human being in that environment.
Absolutely.
And that makes such a difference to your basic self-esteem, I think.
Yeah,
as well.
I think I had a young man whose mum had contacted us, said he was threatening to you know, he never went out of his room, he didn't have any friends, he wouldn't go to school, and she was concerned that he was going to harm himself. And I don't beat about the bush with him. I said, okay, can you get him here tomorrow? You know, bring him to me tomorrow, and I'll speak to him. And after he left, his mum said, you know, what did you say to him? And I said, well, I just said to him that living with Asperger's and ADHD, there's thousands upon thousands of people live like that every day. You're not on your own. You need to understand it. And we had a chat for a while, and we had a discussion. I showed him an animation about, you know, mental health in young people, and he said, it's the first time I've come to somebody who actually gets me.
Yeah.
And I thought,
Right.
that was just a
Yeah.
conversation.
Fantastic. And that, do you know what, that's what the whole thing about the service that you provide offers, and what a great sort of story to end it on. That is absolutely so motivational, and we can't thank you enough for the work that you do, Rita. It's been so great having you here. After the break, we are going to be talking about what's trending. Welcome back. Now, in this episode, we caught up with Rita because we've been talking about mental health. But as usual, we're going to be changing the subject for the next few minutes. It's time for our favourite part of the show. It's What's Trending, where we take a look at what's recently been going on around the world. Now, obviously, this week, there's been the most shocking things happened. Probably the thing that's affected us more since the Twin Towers than anything, the Paris attacks. Maisie, where do we even start with this?
Do you know, I don't know. Before I came to the studio this morning, actually, I went to St George's Hall, you know, to see the poppy display, and within the whole context, found that very moving. I think many things. I think that, of course, it's horrific, it's appalling, it's terrifying, actually. I do also think, though, that it's almost designed to polarise people.
Yes.
And it's almost designed to create dissension amongst individuals who ought to really be uniting. And it's designed to force people to make simplistic judgments.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're with them or against them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that is
Who is
such
them?
Exactly. It's such
Who is
a
them?
dangerous context. And I think it's interesting what voices we hear. For example, I was looking at the Metro this morning as I was coming in, and there were 11 pages dedicated to this, you know, awful event. And within those pages, there were 9 small lines, 6 words of which were a direct quote, apparently, and a tiny photograph which was the smallest photograph right at the end of the 11 pages, that were given over to people who are of the Muslim faith, who are not agreeing with what is happening, and who are, you know, saying it's appalling. And you have to scrabble around to find that. Now, that is not those individuals' fault, that their voices are not coming through in society. We hear the voices of the powerful white Caucasian minority. We're all sitting here, for example. Absolutely. And we hear those voices, and we are not socially making space for other individuals to come forward and say, do you know what, we don't agree with this either.
Well, it's like if somebody...
We don't agree with this
we
either.
Don't. If somebody
You know?
from Birmingham goes out and stabs someone, you don't turn around and go, all Brummies are just all the same.
No, you don't.
You don't do that. So why should you turn round? And there's always, it's like whichever area you live in, there's always a bad area. Do you know what I mean? And you almost go, well, you don't live that side of the railway line, or you don't live in that bit, because that's how society is. That is how it happens. So you are so right. Why? Because a section of people have carried out these. I don't want my children growing up to be frightened of Muslims or frightened of people.
Exactly. But we should be making more space. We should be making more space, because those, you know, there was a photograph of the Muslim and Jewish leaders who were in Paris, who had come forward to lay sort of like wreaths and flowers and all the rest of it, and to give their support. You had to struggle to find that information. And so the public perception is not being helped by aspects of the media that are not creating the space and allowing those voices to come through,
which
but
kind
just
of begs the question.
Hearing our voices all the time.
It does beg the question, what's the media getting out of that?
Well, there are all sorts of questions, but people are going to immediately have those reactions. It is an appalling event. It's horrific. It's terrifying. But while we are not letting people come forward and properly unify and say from all sections of our multicultural society and say, I do not agree with this. Yeah.
There's been a couple of like very large statements like we should shut all our borders, close it all down. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Apparently the French borders were closed so that the individuals could not get out. And again, it's like you've got to read further along. Yeah.
Do you let them destroy and do you let them go, right, okay, it's going to make us panic, it's going to make us shut down, it's going to do you let them do that? I mean, one thing that you wanted to touch on was the snoopers charge, wasn't it? Is something like that going to help, do you think, Sarah?
I don't know. So the government wants to introduce this new charter where they can basically see your personal history and they keep records of it all, sort of going back sort of a few years. I don't know how that is going to impact on your own sort of personal freedoms, your own personal privacy, and will that actually help then stop terrorist attacks and things that have happened?
I don't think it will. As soon as I thought, well, we're going to be talking about this. Well, if I was in a position where I wanted to do something with nobody finding out about it, I would either use snail mail now, if this snoopers charter was put in place, or I would go to a shop, buy a mobile phone with cash, put a SIM pay-as-you-go in, and ask my other, cohort to do the same, and we'd still be under the radar. So it's actually not going to work.
And the cost that they've mentioned involved as well.
It just makes it sound like, it's just something to placate the public. We're just doing something.
But I don't think it'll work, and I think it's a waste of money.
Because the authorities are already, have already actually stopped a number of potential attacks anyway. The ones that we're seeing are the ones that have got through. Yeah. But there are a number of those all the time that are being monitored, etc., etc. Of course there are. Of course there are, and you're naive to think anything else.
Do you know what? If I genuinely thought that it would stop it happening, I don't mind anyone having my purse. I don't do.
If I thought
it'd stop, I'd say take my details every day of the week. But it's just you don't know who's going to get those details. How many times do you even hear of companies where people are hacking into stuff?
Talk, for instance.
Exactly.
The week, yep.
You're our technical whiz. You're the technical whiz around here. Now, what have you been having a little old shufty at this week, dear?
A little bit of okay, well, on the nicer side, we've talked a lot today about social media, and we're talking about the snoopers charter, and we're actually talking about the damaging side of social media. Now, there's a company brought out something called NiceBot, who sends I can't remember how many, but so many random nice tweets to people every 36 seconds. Blimey! Now, whilst it's an automated process and everything, it's a nice idea. It's kind of made me think, why can't we all just do that? Why can't we have a nice bot moment?
So many trolls out there who sit behind their computer screens, writing these, sending out this negativity and hate,
damage businesses, and it just goes back to the same old thing that. I have, in the whole time I use Facebook, I use Instagram, I use Twitter, I have never put anything. The only thing I did last night with, it was over the weekend actually, with the Ollie Murs thing, because he made a bit of a gaffe. I tweeted out and I put, is there not enough going on in this world? This poor man, who I know for a fact, Ollie Murs, stood in the pouring rain for 2 hours when he came into Radio City to make sure he signed every autograph of everybody who came in. Why didn't anybody say, do you know what, he's a really nice bloke, get off his back? Everyone's straight in there. Why can't people go back to the same old thing? I drop my kids off in the morning, they get out of the car, and they actually roll their eyes. I say to them, what do you have to remember? It's nice to be nice. Yes, it is. Why can't we all just be nice?
Don't bash what you hate. Promote what you love.
It's a fabulous idea, but Kathy, you've hit the nail on the head. Why should we have to be told to be nice? Why should somebody have to send a nice tweet?
But it could actually start a positive circle, though. You know how, when people smile at each other on the street, it can send that message of positivity. Maybe we do have to resort to these nice bots.
You don't smile at somebody on the street, they look like you've got some sort of problem.
Oh no, they smile at me, but I think they just think I'm a bit special or something, I'm very special. Another thing, though, in a very good way. Talking of social media, though, something I do want to say today is we've been talking about some really important issues that are affecting children, adolescents, the parents, the families, and everybody around in the support group. If anybody out there is having problems and they haven't managed to get support, do join us on our Facebook page. We'll be there for you. We'll be putting out organisations, numbers and, you know, links on the internet and everything. We'll be there for you. So do come and join us on our Facebook page. Just look for 52%. We'll be there.
There'll be a little bit of everything, won't there?
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, something now that did cause a bit of a stink as well, didn't it, earlier on in the week, about they want to change the age, don't they, that when you get to 70, you've got to retake your driving test. Now, how do we feel about this?
My driving test now and pass it.
Exactly. Who could after a year? How many bad habits do you have where you're like, oh, the steering wheel?
You were saying that, is it your mum who's 72
my
and she's the
mum.
best driver in your family?
By a country mile. My mum is 72 years old. She won't be very happy. Sorry, mother. She won't be very happy with me. She's 51 really. Not quite sure that's biologically possible, but hey ho. But my mum is the best driver in our family because she doesn't drive like driving Miss Daisy. You know, she doesn't toss her up. She drives how she passed her test, but she drives safely. She doesn't have the bad habits that we all have. And I actually get in a car and I never need to use my pretend brake. I don't have to do anything. And she drives. Whereas I'm in the car with my brother, I'm like, oh, God, he's braking so late. I don't know what to do. I just think it's not fair.
Because I think as you do get older, maybe not at 70, but, you know, your reactions are slowing down. So
Depends who you are.
Does depend who you are.
Depends who you are.
But maybe there should be an age. Maybe it's not 70. Maybe it's an 80. But can people actually self-assess honestly about how they can?
Test them then when it's 17 to 20, when there's so many accidents from boy racers. Sorry to categorise them.
And that is a statistical
Why should that
fact,
happen?
actually,
Yeah, that's true.
That at 75, you are a safer driver statistically than that period, that sort of like 17 to 20 period. You know, there are more fatal accidents in the 17 to 20 period than there are from 75 years.
So if we just went by statistics,
if we just went by statistics,
exactly.
You know,
it's reminding and
I know.
Well, I think we're all going to have to go and jump in the car now, aren't we, and get going? We really have literally covered everything. We covered so much today, and as Kathy rightly said, everything on our Facebook page. If you need any of the links or you think you may need help with somebody, that's where you'll be able to find us. And unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. Many thanks to Sarah, to Maisie and to Kathy, who's just been an absolute joy, and thank you so much for your honesty once again, Kathy. And we'll see you all again next time.